at a certain point, it became clear that there should be a foundation, a nonprofit foundation that could handle the finances and handle the 9 evenings. And so the four of them got together and worked with a lawyer to set up a foundation. And much to their great surprise and not very happy, he went to register the name, and you couldn't use engineering, art and engineering was the idea first for the name of the foundation. You couldn't use engineering in the name of a foundation unless you were doing engineering. So it was actually the lawyer who chose the name Experiments in Art and Technology, which was to the horror of all the people, of the 4 people there, but they thought, well, we can change it down the line if we want to. But it came about during the 9 evenings as a vehicle to carry on the performances. What happened, actually, the artists and engineers who had been doing 9 evenings held a meeting in New York at the Broadway Central Hotel and invited artists and others in New York to come to see whether this was a good idea, whether something would be useful for artists, an organization that could help them with technical problems. And something like 300 people showed up, and there were at least 50, I think, requests for help were gathered that night. So it was clear that this was something that artists wanted and needed. And from that sort of meeting, the organization developed and started out with Billy and Fred handling requests and trying to put people in touch with artists and engineers. And then as the organization developed, the idea to reach out to get more members of more engineers who would help artists so we had artist members and engineer members. And then in the office, someone would make a request, and it started with Billy and Fred, and then Ralph Flynn became sort of technical director, so to speak, and he would try to match artists with engineers. And artists would have a project, and then we would look at a list of engineers who had that expertise, and then he would then give the artist these 3 names, and it was then the responsibility of the artist to look up the engineer and begin the collaboration. We never felt that E.A.T. was in charge or doing these collaborations. Those are between the individuals. That was sort of the idea of the technical services. First started, we had this idea of local groups that in different towns, different places in the United States, that individual artists and engineers themselves could start a local group and use local resources to help local artists make projects. And it developed organically. People would say, I'd like to start a local group. And we say, sure. We did have one meeting. I think Billy was working very closely with Robert Whitman at that time. Just the idea, an artist knows when he's making art. The artist says what it is. It's not up to us. But the idea was that the artist had skills and abilities that could be put at the service of society. It was not art. But as an artist, he or she had these skills, these insights, and these abilities. The same way an engineer has specific skills and knowledge. And the idea that this collaboration is working together on a social problem, a problem in the society, could come up with solutions that were new and innovative. That was the idea. Plus other professionals who could be involved. It wasn't, when you began to get into these areas, there would be other people who had knowledge and expertise in the water or the things that we did, so that you would begin to bring in a great variety of people. All of them could work together on one project. That was really the idea, that each of these people had his or her own speciality or skills. And by working with people with different skills, you could come up with solutions that no one had thought of, or could come up with ideas. That was really the projects outside art.